Like any good lab report, this video starts with the final conclusions, and then I'll walk you back to how we got there. In other words, all the spoilers first. Let's take a look at how antiquity went for Confucius and Khmer in the previous video. Here we can see how they finished in the standings for each legacy path. Now, here's how they looked altogether on the legacy path points chart. So the experiment, which I'm going to talk more about, with extreme events turned up to 11, went not too bad overall. The question is who to follow up with. It had to be someone that had at least some immunity to or protection from the elements. It turns out that the Shawnee get protection for their navigable river cities, at least the buildings located there. So no heavy insurance claims and just yields rolling in as often as possible. Here is what their final legacy standings look like in each category. Pretty good, I think, right? And then here's the legacy path points chart. My, that's a fairly clear result, don't you think? And 3 legacy paths in 90 turns. That's the shortest exploration I can remember playing in a long while. So let's go back and take a look at what went so right for Confucius and the Shawnee. And the scenario I'm going to walk you through is one that should work even once the big new update arrives. And in fact, it might be more effective if you can use the Shawnee all the way from the beginning to the end of the game. The premise behind all of this owes something to the work of modder Maple Leaves and his leader mod Zhuge Liang, who comes equipped with abilities and mementos that mean he attracts disasters but takes no damage from them, meaning he only gets the yields that come with every disaster. This makes him an extremely game-busting leader. But since there's no way to protect oneself from damage like that in the regular game, I filed all that away after I played with him for one video, until only recently when I was trying to find a way to make the Khmer work for me. You know, I love a good underdog. And I noticed that their beret improvement protects the settlement from floodplain damage. A quick look, and I realized that the Shawnee has a related protection for cities on navigable rivers. While neither of them were protected from other kinds of disasters, if you strung them together in a single game, the accumulation of extra yields might add up significantly. The only thing to do at that point was push the disasters from light, the light setting, to catastrophic, and see if that gave me the extra push I needed. While my Khmer venture was not as conclusive as I would have liked because of all the time I spent fighting wars, my time with the Shawnee has made me more of a believer in this particular strategy. Of course, the settings for this are unchanged from the Khmer game. Immortality difficulty in different independent powers. I use Quali and Green Colonel's Jacket as mementos so I could make some gold to offset the damage from the disasters, because every settlement was not going to be protected. And a word here about the jacket memento. With it, you get +1 gold per age per trade route, and then double that if you have the most trade routes. Even without that last part, you could still make a fair bet, but if you could get the lead. While I never had much time to get trade going too hard in antiquity, exploration was a different deal. I started making merchants right away. For exploration lately, it's actually become my go-to first build while waiting to discover cartography. And for the jacket memento, getting trade going is perfect because you can get a head start on leading the others in trade routes and therefore get the extra gold for being the leader. And none of this hurts Quali, which gives you 1 gold per age per resource stocked in cities. I'm starting to think that this memento is a little better in exploration as well. Both of these mementos together got a much better workout in any case because, and this might be the key to this game, I didn't get into any wars. At least not until the last 10 turns of the age. Was the absence of war the biggest factor? It didn't hurt. But I think you could make the case that war forces you to get a little tougher, at least defensively, and the improved economy from the mementos might help in that regard, support the war effort. I do know I wasn't short of cash all that much, not like I was with the Khmer and fighting the wars. A better hand at military victories might be able to make the all-disaster scenario work. I do know I was more careful about military upkeep and making sure I didn't fall too far behind in terms of my overall unit numbers and, become a temptation to others. Generally, though, I think this is a viable SimCity strategy. To see why, let's compare the normal yields from disasters versus the yields from this game. Even if there's not always much of a difference in terms of the numbers, it's the frequency of disasters that means getting slightly more yields more often. So the first disasters you see here are with the settings at normal, or light, I should say. And the next set of disasters you see are the ones with the settings at, disastrous, catastrophic. And it's worth noting, by the way, that Civ 6 has similar yields on its disasters, but after the Gathering Storm DLC, the disasters could add up to eventual environmental collapse. So cranking them up to the max was not as good an idea as it is in this game. There was another key factor here, and that was more about map luck. I managed to get multiple treasure resource towns going early on, so the economic victory was never even a question. And the accumulated yields from the Khmer played a part in terms of getting better yields overall for the specialists to make use of in exploration. The science victory path was a breeze as a result. All of this made up for the fact that I was so busy juggling legacies that I didn't push the settling aspect of the age as hard as I could have. I mean, just look at the number of empty spaces I left behind on this map right before the age turned over. I guess that just means there's room to grow in modern. Still, things definitely worked better than I thought they would. Is the big improvement in legacy points because the Shawnee are much better than the Khmer? I don't think this game proves that. What it does show is that the two civs together are pretty formidable. And Confucius works well with both of them. In fact, he very much does not suck with the Shawnee in particular. A more positive person would say they're actually terrific together. And the two mementos are better together than I ever thought they would be. Combine all of this and it's obvious that while the disasters might have helped significantly with the win, there were other key factors in play. Now, a more rigorous experiment would have run another game with disasters set on light to see if there was a noticeable difference between the two games and the end results. But it's simply too hard to put enough controls into place, and really, it's impossible to avoid the luck factor. I guess this is my way of saying that my so-called conclusions are more like hypotheses. Still, I think it's been a way to get Civ players just sitting around talking about the weather. Now, the next question is, what's a good place to go to for modern where a person could keep a snowball going? A snowball? Ooh, I think I've got an idea. For now, if you've liked what you've seen or heard, drop a like or a subscribe down below. This has been Civilized Raccoon, and I'll see you next time.